I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the West Basin Engineering and Operations Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. Could I have a determination of quorum, Mr. General Manager?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll read roll call. Director Tommy Fabai.
Here.
Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray. Director Don Deere.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item is public comment. Mr. General Manager, anyone from the public like to make a comment today?
We've not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak in a public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And I do not see a request for public comment.
Yeah, well, thank you. Then we will move on. Do you have any presentations today?
Staff has no presentations.
Right, then the next item is the action calendar, and the first item is award of an agreement for cathodic protection system survey. Can you please introduce that item, Mr. General Manager?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 4. And for the presentation, we do have Chandler Shield, our Geographic Information Systems Specialist.
Good afternoon to the board. Today I'm going to be presenting on this action item. West Basin owns nearly 110 miles of recycled water pipeline, 45 miles of which are metallic and have galvanic cathodic protection that protects these pipelines from corrosion. Best management practice requires testing for this system, proper protection pipeline. We have about 366 cathodic protection testing stations throughout the metallic pipeline in our distribution system. The testing determines the remaining life of that cathodic protection system. It also identifies any, repairs that might be needed, the recommendations that might be provided during that testing process. The Association of Materials and Protection and Performance, formerly known as APE, has a standard that recommends annual inspection of galvanic cathodic protection systems to ensure proper operation. The cathodic protection system for West Basin was last updated in 2021 and 2022. With testing taking place last in late 2022 and early 2023. So that's about 2.5 years since the last time cathodic protection system was tested. And staff is essentially recommending that testing take place every 2 years. We believe that's a good point to collect information and determine how well the updated system is functioning, as well as identifying the issues of concern. We do acknowledge, though, that this can help determine the monitoring schedule and can be revised to reflect a longer or shorter term once this scope of work is completed. Staff issued a request for proposals for cathodic protection survey project back on May 1st, 2025. There were 4 proposals that were received on May 29th, 2025. And all of these proposals were evaluated by West Basin staff, 3 members specifically, including a guest panelist from the city of El Segundo. The scores between the vendors were pretty close, and the overall evaluation team scored Far West Corrosion Control Company the highest. Those scores are summarized in Table A and presented with a little bit more detail in Exhibit A in the item. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with Far West Corrosion Control Company to implement a cathodic protection survey project in the amount of $89,508, plus a 10% contingency of $8,950.80 for a total not to exceed contract amount of $98,458.80. Any questions? Happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Director, if I may, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Mr. Deere?
Don't say try and answer, just say answer them.
Sure.
If you're going to try to answer our questions, I said, just say you're going to answer them.
No. Okay, is Director Gray on the line yet, or? Okay, in your presentation, you talked about, because we kind of went through this just a couple of years ago, that, the intent is to reevaluate or check the static protection every 2 years.
Right.
And so what does that testing consist of?
The testing, as far as I'm aware, consists of going to these testing stations and evaluating the remaining life within these anodes that are protecting the cathodic pipe. I'm not an expert on galvanic cathodic protection, but part of the work that was done a few years ago was installing anodes at various testing stations throughout our distribution system that protects those pipes anywhere from between 20 to 25 years is my understanding. So you're taking those readings, evaluating if, how much life is left in those anodes, if certain anodes have depreciated more so over a certain period of time, and also evaluating the working condition and connectivity between the anodes and the pipe itself.
Frank, did you want to add?
And if I can add to that, Director. Yeah, so essentially, this consultant would be taking those readings. They're basically taking the current and calculating the remaining life of the anode. But in addition to that, it's also to ensure that the actual test stations or the actual systems are functioning properly. So that would allow us to determine, number one, what the cathodic protection experts recommend is to collect data. The recommendation is every year. We're proposing every 2 years at the time, and to be able to understand over a period of time to predict what the duration of the anodes are. They are sized for 25 years, so that is a theoretical duration. But there could be some systems that may require to be replaced much sooner than that. So that is what we're trying to predict over time to collect data, but also ensure that they're functioning properly. That there could be some that are just maybe wires are disconnected. There could be due to vandalism, contractor disconnects it, issues like that.
So this contract that you're recommending for award, the vendor is going to be providing the testing?
Yes.
Alright. So he'll go through, basically evaluate, test all the anodes, prepare a little summary report at the end, so everything's working right, or anode X, Y, and Z need some attention.
Correct. And if there's any repairs needed, they would provide a recommendation with the cost estimate for us to be able to propose a repair.
And then, once this is done, you anticipate having a similar contract come back in a couple of years.
And again, if the recommendation based on the results of this evaluation are that the consultant can say, based on what our findings, there are no major concerns or major issues, we can reevaluate if the testing should be scheduled maybe a longer duration, or also if they ask us to focus on any specific areas, or just to continue to implement it on a 2-year basis, or maybe they might recommend annually based on the results.
So a couple of years ago, we invested quite a bit of money on a pretty extensive upgrade to the static protection system, and I think we replaced most of the anodes, if not, I think all of them. There was like a 10.
Yes, it was basically all of them. It was approximately $8 million.
So everything is relatively new.
Yeah.
And we're 2 years out. in most of this stuff, I agree that over time it will deteriorate and it gets to a point where you do have to replace it. But the frequency of the testing up at the beginning doesn't need to be as frequent as later on. So may want to think about, especially if it's time they find that there really isn't anything that needs to be adjusted, corrected, about maybe spacing this out a little bit more, given that it's a brand new system that's out there right now.
Yeah, understood, Director. And that's where, we felt that we were extending even the duration a little bit longer than what is recommended. We're currently at the 2.5-year mark, and what we would recommend is to move forward. We could test the system at this time, and then based on the results, reestablish it if we want to extend the schedule even further.
Thank you. All right, you okay with this?
Yep.
All right, we'll go ahead and move that forward. And our next item then is item 5B, which is an amendment to the agreement for the supply of nitrified and boiler feed recycled water to the Torrance excuse me, refining company. Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce that item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 8. And for the presentation, we do have Markham Nasrallian, our Executive Manager of Engineering and Operations.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, board members. This action item calls for a 5-month extension to 3 agreements between West Basin and the Torrance Refinery. One of the agreements also includes the city of Torrance. One agreement relates to the supply of nitrified recycled water to the refinery. Second agreement relates to the supply of boiler feed water to the refinery. And the third agreement is a lease agreement by which West Basin built the satellite facilities that's associated with the Torrance Refinery water recycling. Those are the satellite facilities that we operate today. The ones shown on a site map provided in attachment A. You'll see an aerial view of those facilities. Those facilities are built on refinery land, and hence the lease agreement. On the second page of the staff report, you'll see a historical summary of these agreements, when they started, when they were amended or extended. And copies of all these agreements are also attached to the staff report in attachment C, D, and E. As West Basin, the refinery, and the city of Torrance continue to negotiate terms of a new master agreement for the supply of both nitrified and boiler feed recycled water, the parties propose to extend the 3 current agreements for another 5 months through January 31st, 2026. Copies of the proposed agreement amendments or extensions are provided in attachment A. These extensions that we are proposing here today are similar to the ones that our board approved last year, except that these are for 5 months. And last year we had an extension of 12 months. While we had some negotiation breakthroughs with the refinery over the last year, the parties agreed that we are not at the finish line yet. So while we are here today proposing a 5-month extension, City of Torrance staff will be doing the same, proposing a 5-month extension to their city council in an upcoming city council meeting. To mention some of the breakthroughs, the refinery in West Basin agreed to work towards the transfer of assets and aim to do so prior to the conclusion of the next agreement. Agreed on how to proceed with the transfer of the system controls to the refinery, and as presented in an E&O committee a couple months ago, the refinery agreed to fund 1.7, almost $1.8 million worth of capital project tasks to date. Projects that are bound to improve the reliability of the satellite plant. It's worth reminding the committee that the monthly variable and fixed payments as structured under the current nitrified and boiler feed agreements would continue through the 5-month term of the proposed extensions, with the parties agreeing to perform a reconciliation based on reasonable actual costs incurred throughout the extension period. With that, I will read the recommendation. The recommendation is that the board authorize the general manager to execute amendments to the 3 current agreements as provided in attachment A, extending the current lease agreement and continuing the supply of pipe and boiler feed recycled water to the Torrance refinery through January 31st, 2026. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Good, no question.
No questions.
Director Deere.
Number
This
C,
is 5B.
B,
B.
med agreements with supply of fire and boiler feed, recycle water to Torrance refinery company. Recommendation is to approve.
Okay, so all we're doing here is just extending this for another 5 or 6 months to continue the negotiation.
That is correct.
No change in terms, price, or anything else,
Correct.
just for facilitating the negotiation, which has been going on now for almost 2 years.
It's important to note, because I do want to give Barkev a lot of credit as far as moving the group along. One of the biggest holdups is the city of Torrance. The city of Torrance has promised the refinery that they would be adding a markup to their charge, but they did actually create a timeline for when they would be doing that. So when you talk about those first 2 years, a lot of it was to get to this point right now, which is kind of the delivery date of those charges, where the city had to assess that on the refinery. Now I think they just need a little bit more time to kind of iron that out. But there's also a couple of different nuances as far as how West Basin wants to proceed with the agreement. So a lot of that lead up time to now has been purposefully done in 1 year increments in order to get the city to a point where they could finally do their assessment and charge.
So are they going to be implementing their assessment charge now, or
No.
that's still a pending item?
It'll be a penny item.
Yeah. They've agreed to not extend it for another 5 months, to not add it.
But they will be adding it next year sometime, or you don't know yet.
You never,
You never know.
that's the intent currently, but you never know.
All right, thank you. It's okay, we'll move this item forward.
Yes.
All right. Next up is item 5C, which is the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility Perimeter Fence Improvements. Mr. General Manager, would you please introduce the item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll do a little bit of an intro on this item. We've been talking about the perimeter fencing at Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility for some time. There's a couple of different specific issues, one of which is just the status or the condition of the fence going the entirety around the facility, which we do need to remedy in the near future. The second is that with the change in not ownership, because the city of El Segundo still owns the property where the golf course is, but of course, what's the name of it?
Change of elevation on the.
Yes. So, and removal of trees too. So there is a portion of our fence that is now lower. It's accessible to people on the outside of the fence at the golf course. And so we've been discussing potential remedies for that. The reason staff is bringing this to your attention is because the proposed fix for this issue is slightly different than what the board had previously discussed, which is just an extension of the brick wall to add that additional height. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeremiah Shea, our operations analyst, to present this item, and it does begin on page 119.
Good afternoon, directors, and happy to present on the ECL perimeter fence improvement. So as EJ mentioned, the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility perimeter is secured by a combination of steel fencing and concrete block walls, all of which were constructed during the original plant construction over 30 years ago. And over time, the steel fencing has deteriorated quite significantly in certain sections particularly, and it's showing visible damage, and we're seeing more and more sections fail. Additionally, due to the Topgolf renovation in 2021, a portion of our perimeter block wall in the northwest corner is now much more accessible for members of the public. It's about 4 feet high on the Topgolf side because they had raised the elevation of their parking lot in that area. And in 2024, Veolia, the contract operator for our facility, they notified West Basin that there had been several intruder incidents where unauthorized access of persons into the plant. One was over the fence from the Topgolf side. And in a few minutes, I'll show you some sections of fencing that are actually missing where they documented an intruder just sliding between 2 missing panels in the fence or 2 missing bars. So in response to these security breaches, in October 2024, West Basin staff secured a temporary fencing rental for the worst areas of the perimeter fencing to cover up that access point and secure the site. And we also began soliciting quotes from vendors for a wall extension on the block wall area to prevent intrusions from the Topgolf side. And actually, if we could get the presentation up, there's some visuals I'd like to show the board here, highlighting what our proposal is today. So on this first view, this is the overview of the ECL perimeter. We've kind of color coded it. That orange block represents the block wall with our border with Topgolf. The green sections are generally fencing sections that are in a decent condition. Our staff actually walked the entire perimeter fence and documented the condition of every single panel section and ranked it good, poor, or bad. And based on that condition assessment and rankings, we did identify that the red area in the southwest, it's approximately 600 linear feet, was the worst section of fencing, and that is where we have the temporary fencing installed. Next slide, please. As an example, here's the view of the Topgolf wall. The photo on the left you see here is from our side of the property looking at Topgolf. It's about maybe 4.5 feet, almost 5 feet at that area. But the photo on the right is the view from the Topgolf parking lot looking into our facility. And as an elevated parking lot with a quick skip, a hop, and a jump, you could be over that wall not too hard. So we identified this was a major security area we needed to address. Next slide, please.
Is this where people came in that you alluded to earlier?
Yeah, there was one intrusion noted along that wall from Topgolf in 2024. This is just another image of showing where that wall steps down. During the original construction, there was a grading along this area. So there was a step down in the wall, but now that's a very low section of wall that we're trying to address. And so from the left photo to the right photo is approximately 240 linear feet, where we are requesting board approval to install a fence extension, which would block vision and impede anyone trying to hop over the fence. Next slide, please.
But the fence extension is going to be in block.
The quote received was for a vinyl fencing using concrete anchors above the block wall. And so we have some examples of what that may look like installed. We did get, oh, sorry. So we're proposing a 3-foot high vinyl wall extension for that 240-foot length. And we have just an example photo of the material that would be installed in a kind of similar beige gray block wall installation. And it would run along that whole length there. Concrete anchored, it would also, in addition to stopping access, it would prevent public vision into our plant there, particularly our solids handling building. There's generally some sludge and unsightly things that don't necessarily want the public having eyes into if they don't have to. And over the past few months, we did approach contractors, received 4 quotes, and the lowest quote came in at $8,532 for this installation. And that would address, in staff's view, the Topgolf entry issue. There's some additional recommendations staff has for the perimeter fencing. If we can go on to the next slide.
You just pause on the vinyl fencing for now. As you see, directors, this is a very cost-effective option to pop that fence. It's going to be a lot cheaper than building the wall up higher, but of course it has a very different aesthetic associated with it. And so one of the reasons that we brought this portion of the discussion today is really just to get the committee's input on whether a cost-effective approach like a vinyl topper would be acceptable to the board, or whether they prefer to go with, a continuation of that wall or something else. Because as you can see, we've done the best we can to try to identify what that topper might look like. But at the end of the day, it's a vinyl fence looking material, and that's very different than the wall that's underneath it. And we would hate to just have gone and installed that, because it is under the GM authority as far as the price goes, and ultimately have the board upset about the way it looks.
And again, I think our previous discussions, we've had members of the board of directors out there, and we discussed working with Topgolf and of course the city to extend the brick wall. So this is just a different option.
Is this a permanent?
This would be a permanent, yes.
All right, go ahead. We can come back to this and talk about it.
Next slide. So back to the overview and back to the discussion on the steel perimeter fencing. Like I said, staff did walk the entire steel fence, and on the next slide, we have a few photos showing the type of corrosion and damage and some of the security issues that we're dealing with. So very commonly, we'll see entire posts that are corroded out, missing steel bars. We have an example of one of our facility maintenance team there able to squeeze through the bar, no problem, just because one of them was missing. Last year, we found that some of these sections of fencing were being held together by rope. And so that's when we immediately took action and rented that temporary fence to protect these sections. And one of the most common things we see is that steel bar corrosion, where the only thing left is the exterior paint kind of holding whatever metal shreds are still there. And this is very widespread, but particularly in the southwest and south sections, it seems to be worse for some reason. Next slide, please. In some areas, entire panels are disconnected and would require a welder to reconnect them, new bolts installed. And then also the steel bars are missing completely in some areas. Next slide. Here's the view of the current temporary rental fence that staff has installed to secure the southwest section. So we have 600 linear feet of temporary fence installed. We are renting this at a fairly low cost of about $350 per month. We have this rental just to protect the site and ensure that the operators are safe overnight and there's no more intrusions through this area. Next slide. And so staff's here today to, one, recommend to the board the full replacement of the perimeter fencing given the current status and what we anticipate to be future corrosion of the other sections as well. And so staff's number one option and recommendation today would be for the board to approve the full complete perimeter fence replacement, which is approximately 2,140 linear feet. And there's an added benefit of this option as far as the cost impact. We did approach several fencing companies last year and got their input on the current condition of the fence and some very rough cost estimates for what it would take to replace. And they informed us that our current fence design is no longer a standard design. And so if we were to mix and match and just replace certain sections of the fencing, the dollar per linear foot would be higher because it would be considered a custom fence installation. Whereas if we replace the entire perimeter fence, we see a cost savings because we would be going with a current standard fence design and it would be uniform and installed all at the same time. And we wouldn't have to worry about matching the existing conditions of our fence. So there is a little bit of you'll notice a cost savings in the dollar per linear foot number in each of these options. Another benefit of this option one, you would maintain 100% uniform appearance across the whole perimeter. And we would be proactively replacing any fenced assets that may fail in the next 2, 3, 4 years, as we've seen happen in other areas. Next slide is another option that staff did explore for the board to consider was option 2 is replacing only the south and southwest sections of fencing. These are where we did note the worst sections were. It's a lower overall project cost, but if we needed to match the existing fence conditions, it would be a higher cost to design and build that custom fence style. So based on our initial estimates, the option 2 would be approximately 155,000 to maybe 190,000 as a rough order of magnitude. And option 3, staff did also explore a low-cost option for the board to consider on the next slide. So as I mentioned, we did take the time to walk the entire perimeter and we counted each 8x8 panel that's installed. And we noted and counted the ones that were in the worst condition. And we've highlighted about 60 of these panels to be replaced as the ones that are already failed or about to fail tomorrow potentially. And we did get some initial cost estimates in 2024 for the per panel replacement costs from some of these vendors. And it ranged anywhere from $1,200 to $1,700 per panel. And so this puts this option at replacing only, actually I don't have the linear foot, but 60 panels would cost about $72,000 to $102,000. There is the added risk that additional sections fail in the future and we would have to replace them. And in this instance, we would not have a uniform fence appearance. There would be sections that look different and shiny and new next to old aging sections. But staff did highlight those three options for the board to consider today. We would recommend option one on the next slide. Here's a comparison of all three options for what staff's considering. One being the complete fence replacement, 2,140 linear feet, estimated project cost about 250 to 350K, rough order of magnitude. Option two, the worst sections, southwest and south sections only, 150,000 to 190,000, rough order of magnitude. And then only the worst panels replaced as option three, rough order of magnitude, 72,000 to 102,000. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have or read the staff recommendation.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and I have a couple of questions on, so how long has the existing fence been up?
It's been installed since 1994, the original plant construction, so over 30 years now.
And then, how long have we been paying the $300 per month for the?
We began renting that fence in October 2024. We did a 6-month rental and we extended that in March as we were still considering the options to move forward with. So since October 2024, we've been renting.
And then the standard design, is that the same standard design that's currently existing right now?
The current fence that we have, the posts are 2 inches by 2 inch squares and the bars are 1 inch squares. When we spoke to the fencing contractors a few months ago, they say that's not a standard design anymore. And so the current standard design, I think, is a 2 inch post and a 5/8 inch bar. And so it would just be slightly different than what we have currently installed. So the standard nowadays may have changed. I don't know if we used a standard originally, but the current standard fence design does not match what we have in the field.
And you don't have no pictures of the standard design, but
It would be, I do not have a photo. From my understanding, it would look almost identical unless it was side by side. The bars would be spaced slightly further away or they'd be slightly narrower, each bar. But essentially it would be the same 8 foot by 8 foot steel black painted design other than that.
Actually, if you put up page 133.
Yeah, that's our current fence right there. And yeah, they would match the size. It would just be the bar locations and sizes might not match exactly.
okay, that's all the questions I have.
Director Deere. And Director Gray is not joining us, right? Okay. On the iron fence, I would agree that we should just replace it all and make it all uniform. So that's a good recommendation. And in looking at the replacement, this is an 8 foot high fence right now. Have you, and you may not have you considered also the fence that up on top would have like a partial shepherd's hook?
We did, we actually have met with some higher end fencing contractors that provide like attachments for different types of deterrents or wire on top. And they actually did get back to me just a few days ago with a cost estimate. It was higher in about $400,000 range for that very nice fence with extensions on top and all the bells and whistles.
The extensions I'm talking about isn't super fancy. It's probably going up another 18 inches above that.
Just the curve.
It's got the curve. It's got a partial shepherd's hook, which makes it a little bit more challenging to scale and get over.
Right.
I'm not quite sure that would drive you up to 400,000.
No, that wouldn't. It was a high-end fence contractor.
So, my question is, can we look at coming back with that enhancement? Because if we're gonna make an investment in the fence right now and a permanent replacement of the fence, that we look at that. And then in terms of the iron, are we looking at any coating on it, or are we looking just paint?
These were steel fences, all of them, the existing and the ones we got quotes for, and they all did include costs of painting in black.
So also, can you come back and have them coated? You're in a, I mean, the corrosion that you showed out there is pretty significant, and it is in a very aggressive environment. You get a lot of fog and a lot of salt in that fence, and Palm Desert would probably be in a much better condition than it is in El Segundo. So if we're gonna replace the fence, it'd be nice to know what would be the cost of having either epoxy coated or plastic coated fence. And then my last question that I'd like to see is on the block wall where you're proposing the vinyl fence, which is fine, but just to keep it all uniform, on top of the block wall, you could also install the iron fence so that from the bottom of the wall up to the top would still be 8 feet, but instead of the vinyl, it would just be iron. You mentioned that part of it is that people wouldn't be able to see through the facility. I'm not quite sure that many people can see through, except those people that are playing golf. And it is an industrial facility, so I'm not as concerned with the visibility issue, but I'd like to know what would be the cost of putting just iron so that it's consistent all the way around.
In that instance, Director, would you want the iron to extend across the entire block wall, not just this 240-foot section then?
So that you secure the entire site. So can we bring that back?
We would as a due course anyway, Director. Today, we just wanted to get your direction on whether full replacement was acceptable. To actually execute, especially at these, these price ranges of 400,000+ potentially. We'll go through the whole process. So I think we'll need to put together a scope of work, taking your feedback into account, and then we'll put that on the street and get real bids, and then that will come.
I think you can price this out without putting, you basically go back to fencing contractors or fence supplier.
As we've done so far, we've gotten quotes, budgetary quotes from various vendors. We can do that again with this input, and then bring back any bids.
So can you bring it back next month, but saying if we go and you just have some pictures of what the fence will look like, et cetera, and make sure it is quoted fencing so that for the environment, then it will be a little more permanent.
Absolutely. We can bring this item back and show you the difference between the options as they've been explored so far and including all of this input.
I just got one more last comment. I know that this is, once when we replace this and it's going to be permanent, I know it'll be permanent for a long time. But yeah, I just want to make sure that we do this right. So it can last for another 30, 40 years. And then I do agree with Director Alvarez on the permanent. And then the option one, I'm kind of leaning towards the option one. Is that what you're kind of leaning towards? Okay. And then the white vinyl, is that still under that white vinyl?
No, it's a plastic vinyl, but the posts would be concrete anchored into the existing concrete wall as the connection point.
Now, is the Top Golf, is it in line with like if the balls or to hit that vinyl? Will it actually?
Luckily, this is in their parking lot where no one should be hitting golf balls, I hope. Yeah, we should be well protected from
Okay.
balls in that area.
Okay, because that's what I was worried about. If the balls are gonna hit that vinyl, then you have damage and stuff like that. So it's not in the line.
Yeah, it's not actually on the range part of it. It's in just the parking lot.
Got it. Okay. That's it.
All right, so you know what to bring back next month.
More options for the board.
Well, it's basically the iron fence, but with the hook extension up on top and with footing. And that also on top of the block wall, all the way down the length of the block wall. So that we can compare that with the vinyl.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can have a little pretty picture of it.
Director.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next item is item D, which is the awards for supply and delivery of sodium hydroxide. Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce that item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this next item, again, will be presented by Jeremiah Shea, our operations analyst, and it begins on packet page 136.
EJ, and good afternoon again, directors. I'm happy to present this item for you again. Well, West Basin Municipal Water District uses several chemicals to process and treat recycled water at the ECL WRF facility and our satellite facilities. Staff issued an IFQ invitation for quotes in April 2025 for the supply and delivery of sodium hydroxide. West Basin staff received quotes from 4 chemical vendors, and the lowest responsive bid was identified as Blue Angel International LLC. Blue Angel. In May 2025, the board approved staff's recommendation to award the agreement to Blue Angel. Just prior to the final execution of the supply agreement with Blue Angel staff notified West Basin that their bid quotations were no longer valid due to a calculation error and refused to execute the agreement with West Basin and the IFQ quotes they had proposed. As a result, West Basin Contracts Department determined that the Blue Angel bid was no longer responsive to the original IFQ solicitation, and staff reviewed the other bids received during the IFQ and determined that the second lowest bid submitted by North Star Chemical was responsive. Staff therefore recommends that the board authorize the general manager to award a new agreement for the supply and delivery of sodium hydroxide to North Star Chemical with a 5-month contract term beginning August 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025. And I apologize for reading the recommendation too soon there. I can answer any questions that you have.
No apologies needed. Thank you very much for the presentation. Director Pavey, do you have any questions?
No questions?
Director Deere. You mentioned that Blue Angel came back and said they wanted to change their price. What was the revised price?
The revised price was about 4 times the original price.
They went from
If you
40 cents to $1.60.
correct, table 2 on page 2 of this presentation shows their revised pricing they attempted to submit, where table 1 does show the original prices that were evaluated with the IFQ. Blue Angel claimed it was due to a miscalculation with dry pounds of the chemical versus standard pounds of the chemical.
Director, it's also worth noting that they waited until the 11th hour to attempt to revise these prices when.
No, I only asked the question because I agree. I wanted to bring that up, that it seemed like holding somebody over the barrel.
Uh-huh. That's exactly the way it was interpreted.
So, everything seems fine. I do have a question. Isn't this one of the chemicals that the new operator is going to be purchasing in the future?
Ultimately,
So the reason why this is a 5-month or 6-month contract is just to get an extension till they're fully on board?
That's correct. All of these contracts have been extended through the end of the calendar year.
That's correct.
While we fully expect Jacobs to have their own contracts in place on the start date of September 1st, we do want to make sure that if there is a gap, we can accommodate that gap with our own existing contracts, buy them a little more time if necessary.
Okay, so I was thinking that they probably weren't going to have their contracts in place till January. So the contracts will be in place in September?
That's the expectation. And if that is the case, then we just won't continue to bill against these.
So these are just, you can terminate this at any time, just stop purchasing. Thank you for that clarification. Director Fave, you have any other questions for your client?
I'm fine.
We'll move this one forward. And then, getting to item 5E, which is the project labor agreement update. Mr. General Manager, on
Yes.
this one, I understand that there's a request to defer for a month.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would just simply say that the discussions on the project labor agreement have been very fruitful. I've been meeting with the Los Angeles, Orange County's Building and Construction Trades Council on numerous occasions. We do have an excellent draft. I think there are some questions as it relates to our past practices to include or incorporate a list of projects in those project labor agreements. I think I've mentioned to the board before that under the original PLA, it did include a specific list of projects. It was extended on a time-only extension, which, included or kept or maintained that list of projects. At this time, West Basin does not have a list of projects, so we're currently working with the LA and Orange County's Building and Construction Trades Council on discussing specifically what we would incorporate into that agreement or how we would utilize a threshold dollar amount. And I believe that given a couple of weeks' time, we can easily work this out. I did have a conversation with them today, and they were excited about the opportunity to have those conversations. So with that, staff would ask that we just discontinue or continue this next month.
Okay, so we'll defer this item. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, that concludes the action calendar, and I'll move to the information calendar. The first item is Title 22 filters 3, 4, and 6 rehabilitation replacement project update. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for this update, we do have Orlando Rodriguez, our engineering supervisor, and this item begins on packet page 198.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. As EJ mentioned, you can find a copy of the fact report on page 198 of the agenda packet, but I would like for you to turn to page 201 of the agenda packet. I'll be talking about the project in the next couple of slides. We've actually closed this project out already, so I'll just be giving an update on how everything went. Does the next slide, please? So we're completed here. So our focus for this particular project was filters 3, 4, and 6. We remove and replace the underdrain stainless steel laterals for those 3 filters. We also did some crack repairs inside the filter basins. Once we drained them, we were able to see more on some of the cracks that were inside the filter basins. There weren't too many, but we did do some repairs along the way. We also did some resurfacing of the backwash concrete troughs inside each of the filters. We also removed the existing anthracite media and installed new media as well. And then finally, we did commissioning. But one of the things that we also did here, if you recall, was the crack repairs on the north walls of filters 7 and 8 on the exterior side. So we also completed that. So I'm happy to report that no change orders were issued to the contractor, and the construction activities were actually completed on budget. So we're good there. Didn't go over nothing. So, next slide, please. So the next couple of slides, I just want to show you a couple of pictures of what this project looked like. These are from January of this year, beginning with the removal on the left-hand side of the anthracite media. And on the right picture, you could actually see the underdrain laterals exposed as the media has been removed, along with the gullet area right there to the south. Next slide, please. And then here, the underdrain laterals to the left have been removed. The reason I want to show this picture is on the left-hand side, you can see the backwash concrete troughs there. Those were before we did any resurfacing. It was kind of on elevated kind of troughs there. And on the right, what you'll see is the actual resurfacing of them already completed. These are 2 different filters. We focused on filter 6 first, and then we worked on filter 4 next. So you'll kind of see a before and after what those look like. And also on filter 6 on the right, what you'll also notice is the installation of the under drain laterals. At the very bottom, those are brand new. So they were doing all that work. So we kind of, went from number 6 to 4, 3, and we had crews working on 3 of them. Next slide, please. And here again, what you'll see is more work being done on filter 3. The backwash shelves have been resurfaced. We're doing some of the pre-work prior to the installation of the under drain laterals to the left. And to the right is just a picture of what that looks like in the gullet area. What the gentleman is doing there is doing anchoring work for the air scour system that'll be installed there. And the under drain laterals will go above that area at some point once we install them. So just kind of more photos there. Next slide, please, Desiree. And then here, I wanted to demonstrate the crack repairs that were done to the north walls of 7 and 8. There you'll see on the left-hand side some of the scaffolding that was installed with the crew working there, doing some of what we did there first was install injection ports, did an epoxy injection inside the wall, cleaned that up. And then the contractor did some resurfacing work there of the stucco, patched it up, and then we painted it as best we can to match the existing walls there. So I think they did a pretty good job of matching, and overall it looks pretty fine. Hopefully it'll last a long time. Next slide, please. And again, here to the left-hand side, that's with basically complete there. New anthracite media has been installed. The gentleman inside right there is just kind of cleaning up some of the media that's just not in good condition. So we cleaned that up, just kind of rake it. And then to the right there is during the commissioning process where we run the air scour system, do a couple backwash cycles to make sure everything's working and proper. So we did that with our CM Veolia on site to make sure everything is working in its proper order. Next slide, please. And just to give an update here, again, all major construction activities have been completed as well as commissioning activities with Veolia. So the filters have been handed back to our operators and are functioning as we speak. Notice of substantial completion was issued on May 21st of this year. There were a few punch list items that were remaining. We were waiting for some test reports, samples, and so forth about for the media. So we got those, and once those were received and accepted by the district and our construction management team, we issued the notice of completion to the County of Los Angeles on June 18th. So we're actually in the process of paying the retention invoice soon. And then so West Basin has paid all remaining invoices and is just waiting to issue the retention amount. So again, just to reiterate, no change orders were issued and the project was on budget. So that is $1,742,240. And then just a picture on the right there, that was just a laydown area, which is south of filters 1 through 10. So everything was cleaned up properly. We expected it, accepted it, and the contractor was on its way. Next slide. That's right. I just wanted to go over a few of the next steps here for essentially the next iteration of the filters project. When we originally presented this project, we were intending to work on the 11 remaining filters. We presented that to the committee and to the board, and it was agreed upon to kind of work on them, do 3 at a time, fiscal year. So this is that first one, 3, 4, and 6. So the next one that we intend to work on are filters 1, 5, and 10. And our goal is to continue with Carollo Engineers to provide the design services for this project. Carollo has been on this project for a number of years now. They have extensive knowledge. There's lessons learned that we've incorporated into the design packages. And we are hoping to just perform some minor revisions for the next construction bid package to put out. With that being said, with Carollo being on board, our assumption is that we're able to reduce costs by not having to go out again and put this out on the street, right? Carollo has already done a lot of the work already, so we'll just go back to them and just do some of the minor revisions to the drawings, the specs, and to the bid package overall. We're going to work on 3 filters again. And for this fiscal year, the total project budget for this next version of the filters project is $2,254,577. So this next fiscal year, the majority of the work is going to be in design and some construction work, but the bigger construction activities are actually going to carry over to the next fiscal year 26, 27. So you can see that broken up there with fiscal year 25, 26 having a budgeted amount of 792,000 approximately, and the following fiscal year, about $1,561,000. And the total project budget includes design services, construction management services, along with West Basin staff's time and our operator labor. We did look at performing possibly 2 filters this go around and being able to incorporate some other work, some replacement of valves or so forth. But in speaking with staff internally and our contract operators, it just wasn't feasible. Some of those valves that need to be replaced actually need a full shutdown of train 1 to do some of those replacements. So I think for that, with that being said, I think it's better that that's its own standalone project in the future, or actually handled possibly by our new contract operators. Maybe they have some recommendations when they come on board. So for now, we're just going to focus on doing the 3 filters again, the next ones. Next slide, please. So this is just a preliminary schedule. We do have a proposal from Carollo to do the next iteration of the projects. So we anticipate starting design next month, August. The design would be completed around October of this year. The revisions to the construction bid package, we would issue solicitation for construction services November. Award the contract in January of 2026, and then construction completion in October of 2026. And that's just based also on some of the lessons that we learned in terms of the stainless steel under drain laterals. Those are all custom manufactured. So the lead time for those is about 3 to 4 months at the time when we originally ordered. So I don't know where they're at just now, but we're hoping. But we heard from AWI at the time that some of those times have been easing up. So we're hoping to get them sooner this time around and able to complete in October. Once we had the under drain laterals, it was pretty smooth from there on. Just took a long time to get those. And next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Fabio, any question?
Yeah, I have a question. So can you go back to the prior slide?
Schedule? Yes, sir.
Yeah, the schedule. So when you mentioned issue solicitation for construction, but this is not, you're not going to issue a solicitation because it's going to be Carollo.
Right. Well, Carollo is the design consultant.
Okay.
So we'll go out to put out an RFP, request for bids, on our open system.
Gotcha.
That's what that is.
Okay. Okay. Got it. I thought Carollo was going to be. Gonna do the whole thing. Okay. Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
Engineer? Carollo's been doing this for a while,
Correct.
so it should be pretty straightforward. Do you have a quote from them for the additional work to prepare the plans and specs for
30,
filters 1, 5, and 10?
$30,000.
Okay, and maybe you can come back or send us the information on how much Carollo's fees have been to date on this project. And that's all my questions right now, so. The next step is you will move, this doesn't need to go back to the full board, or do you intend to, no?
This is
This is just
information.
information. When it's ready to go out to bid, you will bring it back.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. So we'll move on to the recycled water treatment facilities O&M services contract transition updates. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item.
On the agenda, by the way.
Yes, and it begins on back page 212. And for this presentation, we have Susanna Lee, our Manager of Engineering.
Good afternoon, directors. So you can page 212, the agenda package. This is just to provide an update on all the transitional activity. The full details are listed in the memo. So I'll just provide some of the highlights of activities that's been going on. The contract was fully executed in early May, so Jacob's team came out to the site and gave an introductions early May, and then they follow up with a more in-depth one-on-one type meet and greet with the individual staff end of May. Throughout the month of June, basically the Jacob's team's been busy with modifying and updating the job descriptions for the individual positions. And that West Basin staff have actually been meeting with both Veolia team and Jacob's teams to talk about demobilizations activities, and then on Jacob's on the onboarding and transition activities. And they did finally issue the job posting in early July, and they are in the positions of issuing and sending out offer letters to mostly the operators, the mechanics, and supervisor to low level staff. They are issuing those this week. They are also in the positions of interviewing supervisor and manager level. There will be probably around 6 positions that they need to have those additional talk for finalizing the org chart, and we will be fulfilling those few positions. One of the few things that the Jacobs team is trying to navigate through is how to onboard these contracts, high dollar contracts, but also adhering to the procurement policy, West Basin policy that we have included in the contract. And so their procurement team is right now providing a drafting a justification letter if, let's say, for the bulk chemical or some of those consumable items, that if they could provide an alternative method that would mostly adhere to our policy, but help them to streamline onboarding some of those contracts. So that's where we are. And in a couple of weeks, then they will be letting us know the whole org chart and who will be filling all the on-site positions. So that's the high-level summary that I have today. If you have any more questions, then yeah.
Thank you. I have a question. So, has Jacobs come back on how many actual employees that they're looking to fill within?
So as part of the proposals, currently under Veolia, there's a 64 full-time positions. As part of the contract, we're filling 57 of the 60. So there are a few positions or personnel may not be on site, but Jacob is actively working with those staff or the positions that are not identified as part of the new contracts to see if there's some good fit within the Jacobs, like other projects, or bring them on board to cover. Not too sure about the details, but they are actively helping those positions that are not identified in the new contract.
Just to kind of a follow-up there, since you mentioned Jacobs is now issuing letters for that. So Jacobs is now pretty much have a team in mind, and they're going to be sending letters, offer letters out. Of the offer letters, and I don't know if you know this or not, but the question is, what percentage of the existing staffing is going to be retained?
Their intention of everybody with
Well, it's a smaller number. Just we're going from 67 to 54,
Yeah.
the other way around, but
Their intention is at least 50 of those will be just batch flipped. I think there's the 6 to 7 supervisor and manager level. They are still having to interview to have discussion.
so almost everybody at the operator level and below will be retained if they're willing to
If
stay.
they're willing, yeah, depending on most likely.
Nobody's gonna force anybody to stay. And, again, you may not know, but rumor wise, most people wanting to just continue to stay if they have, been offered that.
Most of the staff that I have discussion with, yes. And they, in discussion, with the Jacobs team, they heard very positive feedback from the staff and they're excited about the changes. And, oh yeah, that's moment when.
Right.
You don't know what they're excited about?
Excited about changes. They need to see the offer, I suppose. I think a lot of the early on concerns like the seniority, how would that be changing from Veolia to Jacobs? Would they retain those seniority? And I know the salary range, what was posted, may be different from what their current salary is, and with Jacobs inform them that do not worry, but they would not know until they see the offer.
And the offer letters are going to go out. You said they're preparing them or they're,
They're going out, yeah. As far as I'm aware, they're going out in groups because they want to do their due diligence to QA/QC, making sure all the details are correct. So they didn't want to just roll out like all 50 of them at one time. So they're doing like by operator, mechanics, lab.
on the management switchover, their supervisors and managers been on board now, or how's that transition going?
Far as the on-site manager positions, we have the PM and the APM for sure. But like maintenance manager, plant supervisor, and CPO, those are still yet to be identified.
But the plant manager and assistant plant manager
Yeah.
are on board and they're kind of absorbing everything from Viola now.
The contract, remember, takes place September 1st. Until then,
But
it's
there's
still
a transition, so at some point you have to start. That's kind of what I wanted to find out. How is that going?
legally, I think they can't take control of the plan till September 1st at 12 a.m. So that's some of the discussion, Uzi and her group about compliance. And then is Jacob's team on site at 12:01 to take over operation, assuming that it will be the same staff and you're just flipping hats. And so we're,
Suzanne, if I heard, maybe I heard the correct question a little differently, but the project manager was identified in the proposal and he has been very much involved in the transition period. So he is on site. He's already moved and relocated out here to California. And he's very much involved in these interviews with staffing. So the assistant project manager was actually a former employee at ECL. So he'll bring a wealth of historical knowledge with him. I'm not sure what role he's been playing so far to date, but he won't be coming into a cold no matter what.
yeah. So the PM and APM, we've been actually meeting with them the last 3 weeks. They've been on site. We've been assisting, quote unquote, walking the plant, and they've been doing their assessment of where conditions of equipment are. And we have met with them since actually on Friday to go over some of the initial findings. There are a lot of things to prepare, things that we're finding out that maybe not auto mode versus manual, so things up to their standard or Jacob standards that they will need to be bring onto the standard that Jacobs would like. Also, I believe, well, not believe, but this week they have actually brought on their IT and OT specialists, and we've been talking to their compliance team. Lucy and the compliance team have met the Jacobs compliance team to go over some of the reporting and the lab management as well. And we will be meeting with their finance team to set up the invoicing aspect. So there are a lot of activities going on, but in terms of PM and APM, yes, they have been on site doing assessment.
Okay, so in all this transition, primarily it's been the Jacobs team and you guys, West Basin staff. And is Viola participating, or Viola's just kind of running the plant, and the
Viola-
transition planning is all happening between West Basin staff and Jacob?
We do have combined leadership transition meetings every other week. Lately, Veolia leadership have not been attending those meetings, but we've been discussing separately with them to make sure that we get all the data. And that's the big discussion currently. There are data that we still trying to acquire. Which we are also working with IT on our side, and our IT is being connected with Veolia IT to ensure that we will get all the data transfer.
Veolia management's been very, I'd say, very involved at the beginning, especially with establishing the connection to the existing staff and helping transition those staff, anybody who wants to stay. I think I'd say that Veolia's management's been very supportive. As we, of course, move into the longer phase of transition, I think their role will kind of phase out, or their direct involvement in a lot of these activities. But as Susanna mentioned, right now, the task at hand is really a couple of key areas of data transition that, you know, may be housed within Veolia's archives or servers, and just getting the management support to get access to that data is kind of where we're at today.
You also mentioned the various teams like compliance and IT. So their IT team is moving forward with a DCS upgrade. It's a pretty major investment on our part. Have they looked at that and made any comments, or is one of the things that now they've been made aware of, they may or may not be?
We have to begin involving them into, put them into those project meetings. So their corporate engineering managers have beginning to attend those meetings.
So they're just getting involved at that level.
Yeah, it's still early days, Director, and, you know, in an executive meeting we had just last week with West Basin and Jacobs, we're starting to discuss those roles and responsibilities, particularly for the capital projects, right? Where they don't necessarily have responsibility for delivering the capital project, but we reaffirmed our expectation that they will be involved in those, at least from an operational standpoint, to give that operation input. And of course, as a company, they have a lot of insights and deep bench of resources that, when necessary, we can access for those CIP projects.
Especially with the data control systems, they're going to be basically the operators of that. Right? So if they have some thoughts with respect to that, it would be best to get that in now as we're starting to spend money on upgrading that system.
Agreed. They're very much, I'd say, interested in getting us up to speed as quickly as possible for both the DCS upgrade and the solids handling, because if you recall, that solids handling, almost immediately upon their takeover of the plant, it's going to be a completely different temporary solids handling system that they're going to have to run for that first year. And so they've already indicated they're extremely interested in getting across those projects as quickly as possible. But right now, during the transition period, admittedly, they have a lot of other things that that probably have some priority to it, like job offers.
There's a lot in that transition. So we need to stay on top of this over the next couple of months. So talked about the IT stuff, on the compliance stuff, they're making sure that nothing's gonna get dropped on that. Then on the solids handling, back to, they're taking over on September 1. They're gonna be doing the hauling themselves, right?
They will be holding hauling contracts that Jacobs won't actually own the trucks that are doing the
No,
hauling.
but they'll be in charge as opposed to the way it is right now.
Yes, they will hold the contracts for them.
So they're gonna be bringing in a new hauler under contract? Or how's that transition gonna work out? And maybe it's one of these things that's still in progress. It's just of interest because they're gonna take over that particular responsibility.
So as I mentioned, that is one of the it is their intention to take over like the bulk chemical, the solids and contract lab. But we're trying to navigate through the procurement side of things, like do they need to bring it back to the board for approval? All those criteria as listed on a procurement policy. If we need to do that before September 1st, then it might spill over and they might need to access or stay on our current contracts until they have.
Just like the chemicals are.
Just like the chemicals, there's supposed to be their bailiwick after September. I thought it was after January, but you corrected me earlier, which is good, that they're gonna be taking over right away.
Yeah, and similar to the chemicals, our contracts will expire at the end of the year.
Correct.
And then they will step in with their contract.
The expectation is that they'll be ready with their own contract, possibly with the same hauler, given that it's a small field, on September 1st. But if there are delays or issues with that, we don't want to skip a beat in operations. So there is access to our contracts at least till the end of the year, should that be necessary. And of course, as a zero pass-through cost for the contract, quite frankly, whether they're using their contract or we're using our contract, it shouldn't be any additional cost for West Basin one way or the other than whatever they've negotiated for the rate. But I'm looking at it as we have a stopgap in place with our contracts should the need arise for any of these. But the expectation is that they're ready to go with their own contracts and structures within 2 months and a week.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Okay, well, thank you for that. And we'll wrap this up hopefully in 10 minutes or less, so we can get out of here at 5:30. Can we get a update on the engineering and operations, general update? So, Mr. General Manager, quick update there. Otherwise, I think we can go ahead and read it ourselves.
That is true. I think that the materials that are provided on the monthly engineering.
Excuse me. Hello?
Oh.
I'm sorry. This is Director Gray. I joined while you were talking, but I'm here. I know you're almost finished, but just want to let you know I'm here.
Welcome, Director Gray. So nice to have you.
Welcome.
Thank
So the
you.
materials, as I mentioned, the materials are great, provide a great overview of pretty much everything, but I wanted to throw it over to Barton Masurlian, our Executive Manager of Engineering Operations. This item begins on packet page 216.
So, I'm not sure if we were gonna go through a full presentation, probably,
You have 10 minutes.
or perhaps
You can
that,
do whatever you want. You have 10 minutes.
well, let me just give it a shot. Maybe I can just highlight the whole report, for the committee, in that case.
That's fine.
On this month, the focus of the report is on the capital projects and the technical planning program. On the first and second page of the staff report, you'll see some updates on the operations. Barrier product is in June was down for quite a bit. Reason being, first we had a leak out in the distribution system, the pipeline that takes the barrier product to the blending station. We had a leak there. And as soon as we were able to fix that leak, we had a barrier leak on site in the plant as well. So it's back-to-back leaks that impact the production of barrier, unfortunately. But fortunately, the influent water quality has been stable. And we've been able to bring barrier back up production, not to where it needs to be, but back up from the lows of late June. We, on the PB Golf Club, the operations team completed the cross-connection testing, the on-site cross-connection testing. That finished in June 23. It was very successful. Just minor follow-up items on that. But with the overall PB project, the pipeline side of things, we're trying to wrap up a few things with the city of Palos Verdes Estates on erosion control on the master meter, some minor stuff there on the PB pump station. There's some paving work, some sidewalk work, fencing, but really the SCE coming in to energize the system, that's what's controlling the schedule on the PV pump station. So that project's moving forward. There's a lot of good information that Veronica put in the presentation and the staff report. On the
Interrupt you a second. Go back to the interruption on the barrier production. So how many days were we down?
For June, we were down from
You've been down since the 24th, or you were down on the 24th?
June 24th to the end of June, so that's. And then as soon as we were ready to ramp up, that's when we discovered the leak inside the plant. And we were interrupted for about 2 weeks into July. And when we were able to replace that or repair that pipe, we were able to bring the production back to 5 MGD until a week ago, and then we discovered there's another issue. So for July, it's going to be
Almost the whole month.
significant impact. Sorry.
Almost the whole month.
Yeah,
Almost,
we have,
yeah.
we're probably gonna be down to like half of what we intended. And then right now we discovered an additional leak at RO1 and 2. That's another hurdle that we need to address before we can have this whole system back. But with RO1 and 2 off, we should be able to get to 11 MGD with all the CIP pump repair, and the line is already repaired. So right now we need the CIP pump, and we just replaced that baseboard CIP pump yesterday. So we are at currently 11 MGD.
So, but there's a big block of time where we were basically down. Last time you had a really nice graph that showed, when we were producing how much and when we were down. And it wasn't in this presentation today, but maybe you can bring that back next time. And in the interim, if you can send us a copy, be interested to see where we're at. Now, has that not affected the Chevron production?
We kept that one. Chevron production is always our priority, so we have not impacted the Chevron production during that phase.
If I could, Director, just as a reminder that graph you're referring to will show up in this E&O committee packet every 3 months, so once a quarter, and we can certainly add it more often than that. But one of the things that we tried to do at the beginning of this year was, since there's so much information that we can put into this engineering and operations report, and every month it could be quite lengthy, we've begun to compartmentalize them so that, once a quarter you're seeing barrier production, groundwater, water sales, et cetera. This month, we're focused on the CIP projects. But we recognize it's a bit of a fine dance to understand exactly what the committee might want to see in a given month. So, but our intent is to see everything at least once every 3 months.
That's a good game plan, and I appreciate that. But maybe you can just include that, even if it's just an attachment and you don't spend a lot of time on it, except every 3 months you dedicate time to it.
Yes.
But I would appreciate is looking at those numbers, and I'm interested in, how the plant's operating, how we're reducing what our influence looks like, et cetera.
Yeah, it's just like we can add some standing grass that are just always there, whether we discuss them or not, unless the board or the committee has questions.
Quite close on barrier. The county has informed us starting next week, Thursday, they need to reduce the production to 5 mg. And that will take us into 2 weeks of August.
So why do they want to reduce the production to?
Because they have to take down their south leg of injections. They're repairing some
So
wells.
they're gonna be doing repairs.
Yes. And only the north lake injection wells will be online, and that's basically 5 mg that they have in the barrier. So
Right. So I'm gonna see a lot of maintenance trucks going up and down the, Greenbelt. Okay, sorry,
A few more, no worries, DCS, that project has been kicked off on June 17th, and we're in the middle of extensive design workshops and site assessments. Solids handling was kicked off. Notice to proceed went on July 14th after many RFIs that we received and many coordination meetings. Hydraulic jacks for the elevators have been ordered. They're in fabrication. We expect them around October to come in. And then there's some updates in the presentation about the two pure water programs. The City of LA's Pure Water LA program. We've recently had a workshop meeting with the city talking about potential IPR, DPR options for Edward C. Little. Also in the Pure Water Southern California, the draft EIR was issued. West Basin submitted its comment letter. And we are working with Metropolitan on potential term sheet, bring back to the board for consideration. But generally concludes the general overview of the updates.
any questions? Engineer, any questions? Director Gray, any questions? I don't have any questions here, but could you send us some?
No,
everybody
thank you,
Copy
thank
of the. Send us a copy of the
No
comments
questions.
on the. Thank you, Director Gray.
Pure Water SoCal
The
EIR.
Pure Water SoCal EIR.
Will do.
Okay, so with that, we don't have a closed session. Any director comments or future agenda items? Director Fave, you got none. Director Deere, Director Gray. I
No,
have
thank
none,
you.
so
Thank you, yeah.
we are adjourned. 5:30.